Hi student success, you made it through week 1 and this is your week 2 video. So I'm going to go ahead and just remind you of a few things real quickly. When you get into our class, always start here until you're more comfortable. Again, this is where you're going to go for your syllabus, a little bit information on your required textbooks, and just basic background information on the course and Blackboard in general. Now, when you're comfortable with all this, you'll probably go right toward that lesson tab there. So when you get in here, remember there's another access to your textbook. There is that student services assignment I referenced already. Now I am waiting for the office to release more information about how to register. So if you want, you can hang on to looking into this more in depth until I get that information. Remember the student lounge, a lot of you have already introduced yourself, and so I've appreciated and meeting you all that way. And the muddy point is where you can go if you have a question that you can both ask me as well as your fellow classmates. Syllabus quiz was only required for that first week, but you'll still see it there, but after week 1, you will not have to worry about that any longer. Now I'm recording this video in week 1, so that's why you're still seeing this open. I'm going to go ahead and scroll down to week 2. Okay, so in week 2 we are in chapter 4 of our text, listening, taking notes, and remembering. And I'm going to point out a couple things here. In the materials folder we have a link to our textbook, which I have opened up here. And then we also have slides, and I'm actually going to use the slides today to talk through this chapter and then point a few things out in chapter 4. Then I'll talk to you about what you're doing. Alright, so in this chapter, it's all about listening, taking notes, and remembering. So just a few takeaways from the chapter is that college is not just an extension of high school. There are certain things you have to do differently, and this is more personal responsibility on you for learning versus your high school teachers who kind of were helping you and guiding you through the process. Your college instructors are there definitely to help you, but a lot of the responsibility still falls on you. So as you prepare yourself for class, part of the listening and note-taking is you have to be prepared. What do you want to get out of the class? Look at your syllabus, what's going to be covered, how is this information going to pertain to you? And then physically, making sure you're rested, you're fed, you're not distracted, you're on time. All of those things also set you up for success for note-taking and listening. So when you're in a lecture class, making sure again that you are in the right mind space, you've looked at your syllabus, you know what's coming up, your assignments are completed. Sitting toward the front of the room and making eye contact is a great way to stay engaged. That helps with that both comprehension and note-taking. Try to make sure distractions are, your phone is maybe tucked away or to the side, that you are focusing on what's going on. And then look for signals. We're going to talk about those here. So look for signals like when the instructor repeats information or writes things on the board, or make sure that, if they're not saying something, that's a signal as well. If they don't cover something, that's letting you know maybe it's important, but it's not quite as important as this other thing they focused on. And you might have to sort through things. I always tell my reading students, if you know chapter 2 is going to be covered on Wednesday, then read chapter 2 before Wednesday. That way you're setting background knowledge, and you also will know what to anticipate, and you can even have questions ready, and you can listen for areas that you struggle with as you read on your own. And sometimes you can record lectures. You have to make sure it's okay with your instructor, but that could help with your note-taking and listening as well. So the next slide goes over, what happens if you have an instructor who speaks too quickly? How could you help? Maybe you and a partner in class could exchange notes. Maybe you can email or visit the instructor during their office hours. Sometimes you might have an instructor where their accent is heavy, and so very similar to that, see if someone else was able to get the notes, visit during their office hours. So there are situations where you might have to ask for repeated information, ask someone else for help with the notes, or visit office or email the instructor. The reason taking notes is important is because I know even when I was very young, I thought, well, if I don't write this down, I'll still remember it, and then I would almost never remember it. So it's become increasingly important to me to constantly, if I think I need to know something, I write it down. Same thing with your notes. When you're listening and when you're taking notes, it really impacts your listening efforts. You're listening for main ideas. It allows you to put things in your own words oftentimes. You can remember more what the information is discussing. It also allows you to come up with a study guide so that you have a template to start studying for assessments. So in your textbook, section 4.4, there are different methods on how to take notes. Some of you may use one or two of these now. They say typically if you're a visual learner, you're going to want to do something like concept mapping so that you're seeing things in that visual format. If you are disorganized in your notes, Cornell methods are a great way. And again, your actual text will go into a little bit more depth on those methods of note taking. So some more note-taking tips, be prepared. Obviously, make sure you have your utensils, your notebook, whatever you might need. Look to see what's being written on the board. Don't try to write down every single word. Pull out the key points. Always put dates on your notes. That's something I learned that was really important. It's a small thing, but it's helpful. Put your dates on your notes so that you can go back to the exact lecture day. Review your notes as soon as possible within 24 hours. Just review them. That way if you had a question or something didn't make sense, the information is still kind of fresh in your mind. And then even writing a summary of the main ideas. When you put information into your own words, it's always helpful because it can show that you really understand what's going on. So what if you miss class? Always look at the syllabus, maybe ask a classmate to look at notes, talk to the instructor. So there's avenues to get around that. And then part of note-taking is also you want to transfer that information to your long-term memory. So try to connect that information to your everyday life, come up with images, examples, repeat the information, practice the information, test yourself. So that's kind of the overview of that chapter 4 slide. Now the actual text here, you can see again, the entire thing is about listening, taking notes, and remembering. So there are some self-assessments that if you want to look at, you can take a look. I'm going to pull the contents up here. All right. So that 4.4 section that I mentioned is right here. So there's a little bit more, that box, and then it goes into more depth about each of those methods, like what they look like, what they're effective for, how you can replicate them. So if you're looking to try to change up your notes somehow or get more effective in your note-taking, that section really goes into more depth. Also, I know sometimes people struggle with memory, so this section 4.5 will talk to you about how to use memory to your advantage, the memory process, that short-term to long-term, how you can use listening and note-taking skills to enhance your memory. So there's a little memory exercise right there that you can give yourself, some strategies like mnemonics. Maybe you're familiar with this acronym HOMES, PEMDAS, all those things. So those are all suggestions on how to get some memory strategies. So that's chapter 4. So I wanted to take a few minutes to go over that and encourage you to look at the slides on your own and then spend some time inside the text in chapter 4, especially, if there's a particular area. Are you ready for class? Are you really listening, remembering, anything that really you're like, oh yeah, I really need to focus in on that. Okay, so for week 2, in terms of our assignments, you have 2 assignments this week, which is not terrible considering you had more than that in the first week. So if you go down to the assignments area, you do have 1 discussion form and 1 assignment. So let's go into the assignments. Your discussion form, you're going to see is right here, but you have to complete this first. It's a how well do you listen survey. So you're going to take that first. It's going to open you up into kind of like what you saw with your Title 9. It's going to run you through this little survey, and you're going to get some results at the end. Based on the results that you get, you are going to use them. Let me get back here. It does not want to let me back. There we go. Based on the results that you get, that's what you're going to use for your discussion forum. So it's going to tell you, oh, you're a great listener, or oh, hey, you need room for improvement. You're going to answer these 3 questions. How did you do? Did the results surprise you? What is your plan for improvement? Meaning like, oh, yeah, I know that I get distracted, or I know that I doodle. I need to improve. So that's what you're doing for your forum. So you'll submit that, just like in week 1, your discussion form original post will be due on Wednesday for week 2 attendance, and then you'll need to respond to 2 classmates by Sunday. So that's the forum. Remember, survey first, then the forum, and then you have a Chapter 4 assignment. So when you open up Chapter 4 assignment, it's going to open up into this document, and Chapter 4 is about listening, note-taking, and memory. So it says under 4.6, so we'll have to kind of get back into here. It's chapter activities 4.6, and it gives like a brief, here's what we talked about in listening, note-taking, and memory. And there's a chapter review there for you to kind of practice. All right, so the table is kind of replicated there. You're listening. What are some things that you could do to improve your listening? You're going to come up with 2 ways to improve your listening, and maybe you want to like revisit that section up here. Maybe you want to go to that section in the table of contents, but you're going to come up with, I'll pull this up, come up with 2 ways to improve your listening. When are you going to do that? This week, this semester? And how will you know your listening's improved? So same thing with your note-taking. What are 2 strategies or 2 tips you're going to implement? When are you going to implement them, and how will you know your note-taking has improved? And then memory. What are some memory strategies? When we work on those, how will you know your memory is improving? So you're going to do that. You can do that right here in this Word document. File, save it, and then when you're back in the Blackboard course, you'll see it's right there again. You're going to browse your computer, find it, open it, and submit it, and then I'll be able to grade it. Okay, so going back to week 2 here. Week 2 is about Chapter 4, listening, taking notes, and remembering. So spend some time in that slideshow or the chapter itself. You have 2 assignments. Take the survey first, the How Well Do You Listen survey, and then use your responses to post in the forum. Your original response by Wednesday for week 2 attendance points, respond to 2 classmates by Sunday, and then your Chapter 4 assignment is due Sunday. So I hope this helps. Let me know if you have any questions. Have a great week.